afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this emergency podcast edition of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me all over the place at Hawk Blogger, and it happened. The worst kept secret, maybe in free agency, other than maybe the Drew Dalman signing with the Bears, has occurred. Cooper Kupp, Yakima native, has come home to play for your Seattle Seahawks as the latest signing by John Schneider and this crew, as they absolutely are remaking, renovating, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it, this offense for the Seahawks. And I think it's been universally celebrated across Seahawks fans from what I've been able to see. Obviously, news is coming out just now. And I think this was something a lot of fans wanted to see happen. The only thing I've seen that has given people a little bit of pause is the contract terms. And so if you haven't heard that yet, the reported deal is for 3 years, $45 million. 3 years, $45 million. And that works out to about $15 million a year. In fact, it's exactly $15 million a year. Now, I think a lot of folks are going to look at that and be like, yikes, that's a lot of money for an older receiver. And Cooper Kupp, as good as he's been throughout his career, is an older receiver. He is 31, and he'll be 32 in the next, couple of months in June. He's a Gemini. I think I figured that out before. He's a June 15th birthday, 4 days after me. So we'll celebrate that together, hopefully, in a few months. But giving a guy who has come off some injuries, struggled to play as many games as you might want. He played 11 games. He started 11 games last year. He played 12 games the year before. He played 9 games the year before that. That is a lot of missed games. And handing out $15 million a year is unnerving, at least to some folks. What I would say is, one, don't believe that that's the deal for a second. I want to find out what the guarantees are in this deal. Those have not been reported, as at least that I have seen. If you guys have seen that report, let me know. I'm looking through. I don't see guaranteed money yet. I would guess the guarantees are going to be around 20 million, maybe closer to 15. But I think that's right around where the guarantees are going to be. I think this is essentially a 2-year deal. I would bet it's going to probably average around 12 million. Like maybe like 2 years, 24 is what it'll end up being. And a lot of folks are like, hey, he's older. What is he doing getting this kind of money? Well, Tutu Atwell is younger, but has done absolutely nothing really of note in his career. He signed with the Rams for $10 million a year. So I don't think it's realistic to get a player of Cooper Kupp's caliber for under $10 million a year, or even at $10 million a year. I think it was always going to be north of that. And for what it's worth, Jordan Schultz is reporting there were a variety of teams in the Cooper Kupp sweepstakes, including the Broncos, the Saints, the Packers, and the Patriots. But the Seahawks sold Kupp on a return home and being a key focal point of the new look offense with Sam Darnold. And this is going to be a little interesting. I've always thought, since we talked about it yesterday or the day before, the news has been fast and furious around here, that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a change of pace. He is a weapon in this offense that they can use in certain sets. I don't think he's going to be out in the field 60% of the snaps. And I also think that this notion of Clint Kubiak being a 21-12 personnel guy, where he's going to have 2 backs and 1 tight end, 1 back, 2 tight ends, and only have 2 receivers, I think it's generally true, but I don't believe it's limited to only doing those things. He will run 11 personnel and have 3 receivers on the field. And when he was with Minnesota, he did that more than he did it with the Saints. So I think he will adapt to his personnel. I still think tight end is a more important part of this offense for a variety of reasons. But one of the things Cooper Kupp gives you that the average receiver doesn't give you is he's a hell of a blocker. And so I think the opportunity to have Cooper Kupp come in here and not just be excellent route runner, excellent hands, good contested catcher, but to be a guy that also demonstrates the grit for blocking in this offense and something that he's done as part of Sean McVay's offense. I think he also adds credibility and some swagger because he's been there and done that. He's been at the top of the league. He's been considered the best receiver in the league at one point when I think he had 1,900 yards in a season. So there's a respect that comes with that. And it's also something for this team to see that this front office is not turning this into a rebuild year that is just a throwaway. This front office is building as best they can to win right away. And people can snicker at that, but that is what they're doing. They've got cap space. And for what it's worth, I don't believe, even if Cooper Kupp is washed, even if Cooper Kupp, which by the way, I had real concerns about Cooper Kupp last year, for being very honest. I thought he looked toward the end of his career last year at times. Speed was pretty bad. He did make some good contested catches. I thought he showed up a little bit in the playoffs. We'll talk about that. I'm going to look through, but I'll show you kind of the progression of what happened with his season, and then we'll kind of talk about that. But still, even if this turns out to be Jerry Rice in Seattle, which was fun, Seahawks legend Jerry Rice, it still, I think, is a good move. I don't think that there's another place that they were going to park this cap space or this money that was going to be a better addition. I also think this should hopefully really put to bed the notion that there's some kind of cash problem. Like the Seahawks spending money on a veteran receiver, like this is a little bit of a luxury move. Like I think you could very well have made the case that they didn't need to make this move and that they could go in the draft and add one of the numbers of good receivers that they've got available to them in the first 92 picks, where they have 5 choices. But they looked at this and they're like, screw that. Like, we've got money. We're going to spend it. And we're going to spend it on a guy that wants to be here, who loves Washington. He grew up here. He wanted to be on the West Coast. He wants to be in this locker room. And he wants to play his old team twice a year. Don't think that's not crossed his mind. He did not appreciate the Rams kicking him to the curb. I think a lot of Rams fans did not appreciate them kicking Cooper Kupp to the curb. And let's get a little rivalry. Like the Rams, they shouldn't have won that division last year. Like the Seahawks should have won that game 10 different ways in Seattle. 20 different ways. I mean, there's so many ways they should have won that game. And they end up winning the division by a 5th tiebreaker. This is a little budding rivalry. And I think this is going to add a little spice to that rivalry. I'm looking forward to that. Like, some of the most fun I've ever had watching the Seahawks is when they've had a legitimate rivalry. Not just the 49ers, which has been my favorite for sure, that rivalry, but back in the AFC West, the Broncos, I hated the Broncos. The Raiders back then, I hated them. It adds something, and you need this. Like, you need these things that add a little spice. You need DeMarcus Lawrence calling out the Cowboys. You need Cooper Kupp wanting revenge games against his former team. That's fun. And I am not going to be the guy that's going to tell you that Cooper Kupp is going to go and have some massive year and just blow up and have all these major stats. And there's probably going to be a moment where fans are like, wait a second, like, he doesn't seem like he's worth all that money we're paying him. I'm going to tell you right now, he's probably not going to be worth the money that they're paying him. Like, I would say that that's more likely to be the case than not, but I'm not going to bet against him. But once you start having injuries, once you start like the path downhill physically in the NFL after the age of 30, it's tough to reverse course. I remember last year in training camp, he came in and said, I'm in the best shape of my life. I feel the best, better than I ever have, and then missed a lot of time. So I'm not here at this very moment where it's good news and I think we can kind of celebrate it and look through it to kind of crap on it. But I am here to say at the very beginning, I think this is a good signing independent of whether it turns out to be, a highly productive signing. It's the right thing for the locker room. It's the right thing for the receivers room. I think it's going to make for more options for Sam Darnold. It's going to make for more options, more creative choices for Clint Kubiak. Personnel-wise, package-wise, it's going to give the Seahawks more flexibility in the draft, whether they feel like they need to go receiver in the first day or two, or maybe they prioritize tight end. Maybe they prioritize another skill position. Maybe they just really just draft all offensive linemen and defensive linemen, whatever they choose to do. This gives them some flexibility to go into this season at least without needing to add another receiver. And don't forget, they also re-signed Cody White, who everyone's going to be like, who the hell is Cody White? Well, Cody White, I think, is a guy that has more to offer than what he's been able to provide so far, the chances he's had. You have Jake Bobo. And a lot of fans are like, why don't you just start Jake Bobo? Now he's been pushed down the depth chart. Well, he'll get his chance. And I think he fits this offense a lot better than the past offense. I think these crossing patterns, I think the blocking required, I think Jake Bobo is going to really push for reps. And I think he is like a Joe Juravicious style of player that just fits really well into this kind of offense. So I think now you've got this situation where you've got JSN, who is your clear number one, do-it-all kind of guy. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. You've got Cooper Kupp, who has made most of his money playing in the slot, but he can also play outside. Both of them excellent route runners. A little bit different than what the Seahawks have had recently. You've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who is a 4.37 40, still even at 30 years old, has taken the top off and had 4 touchdowns in 8 starts for the Saints last year in Clint Kubiak's offense. If you didn't see the interview or the press conference that's up on the channel, go check it out. It's got Unlocked as the thumbnail, and he talks about how Clint Kubiak was the reason that he chose to come here, because he just feels like he got a different level of coaching and a different fit in this offense than what he's had in any other place in his career. So I think that puts them in a pretty good position of, Jake Bobo's another guy, great blocker, good high pointer, contested catcher, I think a pretty good route runner. And then Cody White, who I think is a kind of an all-around receiver, a big body kind of X-style receiver. I think he's got a lot to offer. So I like the combination that they've now got in that receiver room. And I think they're not done adding to it. Not to mention you've got Noah Fant, who's like, I still haven't seen enough to be like super excited about Noah Fant, but you got Noah Fant. And you got A.J. Barner, who I think is on the come. I think A.J. Barner's a guy that may really blossom in this offense. And I think he's a guy that, as he gets more time off seasons in the NFL and can get, into the weight room and really build himself out even more, I think is a tone setter for this offense. So before I get into I'm going to get into some numbers for you. I'll talk about Cooper Kupp's stats and some things like that, just to give you guys some more information. But before I do that, first, Give the show a like, click subscribe. If you haven't already, please do. Would appreciate it. Click the bell to get notified. The only way you're going to get notified when I go live on these emergency pods and other things is if you click that bell. So make sure you've clicked the bell to get notified. We just passed 16,000 subscribers today, or yesterday, as a matter of fact, which is really cool. I think we're pressing already towards 17,000. So let's see how big we can get this community. But before I get into the numbers, think about like the vibe of like the characteristics of the players that they're starting to add, that they're starting to focus on. They're focusing like a lot of these guys give off the vibe of gritty, lunch pail, hardworking, physical players. Now, Marquez Valdez-Scantling doesn't really fit the physical side, although in some of the video I showed a couple days ago, like he'll go over the middle and make a catch. He made some pretty nice contested catches. So he's slightly built, but I saw him take some pretty big hits. So you've got this group though that I feel like is a pretty physical bunch and not necessarily the group that's going to be flashy necessarily. Like I like JSN obviously has some of that in his game. But I think these guys are all about the business and all about the sport. And I think having a guy like Cooper Kupp, how he's going to come in and work as a pro, I think will show up. And I think it'll be great for JSN to have that at this point in his career. I think having a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence come in and demonstrate the kind of grit and the kind of professional that he is at a great time for Boye Mafe and Derek Hall. And that's no shade to Uchenna Nwosu, who I think is awesome as well. But the more the merrier, right? And I think this team is starting to reflect the identity of Mike Macdonald. It's starting to reflect the identity of a coach who I think is a lunch pail coach. I think he's never going to be flashy. He's never going to be the guy that lights up a room with like great sound bites and whatever. But he's always going to be sincere. He's always going to work his ass off. He's always going to do things smart, like wise. He's going to be wise and he's going to outthink and out-prepare folks, I think, on a regular basis. And there's just a grit and an ambition to how he approaches things. And so I don't hate it. I don't hate having that identity starting to form here. And people aren't going to take the Seahawks particularly seriously. They're not going to look at the Seahawks and say, well, Sam Darnold's the guy we can take seriously. They're not going to look at this offensive line that even if they get a Tevin Jenkins, even if they get, whoever else they choose to maybe bring in, they're not going to look at that and say, oh, that's a clearly better offensive line. And I don't really care. Like, let's see what Mike, Clint, John Benton, Rick Dennison, Adam Dirty, Carl Brooks. Let's see what these guys can do with this group. I feel like they could end up being a much grittier, much more reliable week in, week out team than we've seen for a little while. And if this defense is as good as it could be, especially if they're even able to add some more to this defense, like, I got to say, I'm still all about offensive line, probably with that first pick, but got me dreaming a little bit. If you add a Nick Emenwari at safety to this defense, you add some true blue chip player to where there's already some pretty close to blue chip players, and it's really coming together. Like, that's a pretty entertaining crew where you can just physically dominate some people and defensively dominate people. And then the amount of scoring that your offense has to do is different. And I'll continue to say that I think a lot of what their vision is It's so much different. People have what they saw last year, and they're like, we just need a running game with that. It's not going to look like last year. They're not going to pass. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't pass the ball 40 times in a game all year next year. They did it like almost every game uh, last year, and next year I don't think that they will. You're going to see a lot more running. I think Kenneth Walker is going to be a focal point of this offense. I think the running backs in general are going to be a focal point. You're going to see yardage and touchdowns and a lot, well, especially yardage, shift from receivers to running backs. And I think that's okay. I do think that's okay. So this is just part of a transition that's going on. And I can't stress enough, they're adding players who want to be here. And I think that's just a critical part of what we're doing right now. Let me bring on to the show my buddy, Jeff Simmons. Jeff, I was like, I said anyone could join, which would be great. You and I have a show tomorrow, so like I love every chance we get to talk. But good to see you, dude. How you feeling about this move?
Yeah, I'm not going to be on for long because we better save some stuff for tomorrow. But can John Schneider stop interrupting my Friday nights with my son? That's 2 weeks in a row. Gino last week, and now this. For me, it's I need to see the real numbers. I know I'm being that annoying guy on Twitter that's like trying to like mansplain everything to you, but like, there's no way you got a 3-year, $45 million contract. when the agent doesn't give a guaranteed number out, it's a big red flag. And I know we all fall for this every time. Even Evan's like, we need to see the real numbers. Like, guys, the contract leaked are never real. Like we saw what happened to DeMarcus Lawrence. It went down like $9 million within 10 hours. And it's even lower than that if he doesn't get it. So I'm very curious to see the real numbers, but I gotta say, I'm pretty excited with the overall pivot of where this has gone. Like we did free agent list, what, a month ago, 2 months ago? Like if you would have told me their offseason would be Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, and DeMarcus Lawrence, I would have been like, what are you talking about? That's not who the Seahawks signed ever. And so it's been a fun, this makes the week a little better. Like the offensive line thing is obviously, we'll save that for another day. But like, look, it's a fun move. It's a fun move. This team needed a good PR move after what's been a very tumultuous week for their fan base. People need a reason to be happy about something. I'm not in the Geno Smith, like the world is falling camp. Like I'm not there. Yeah. I kind of made a comment about it online today. Actually found Darnold a little more likable than I was expecting. I heard he's like super vanilla, like all football, not much to him. Actually found him kind of likable. But Cooper Kupp, if you listen to me cop about Cooper Kupp in December, I would have told you this guy looked shot in terms of like his body. But when he was healthy last year, this is me probably convincing myself into this, he looked pretty good last year. There was 3 games last year. I think the Buffalo game, that was like their most shocking win of the year. Mm-hmm. He was really good as a complimentary receiver. What happened with him at the end of the year, his lower legs, and he got hurt, his hamstrings. He had some lower leg and stuff. And there wasn't much juice left in the legs. But I think Nathan from our chat was like, why did Hopkins only have $5 million in this? There was clearly a market for Kupp versus Hopkins. Kupp can still get open very consistently. And they don't have anyone else other than JSN really to do that. And we don't know if this guy can stay healthy at this point of his career, but I think the real winner of this whole thing is JSN. Like, to learn from this guy as you're like hitting the peak years of his career. Mm-hmm. Cooper Kupp, like, I think Albert Breer put out a tweet from like some doctors that who are like the hardest workers he's ever been around. It was like LeBron, Tiger Woods, and like Cooper Kupp. It was like something like that the other day. Find it from Albert Breer. He retweeted it earlier today. But Cooper Kupp, like, is known as one of the best, like, teammates, leaders, clubhouse guys, teachers. Like, talk about a difference in, like, I don't want to slag DK Metcalf or something, but talk about, like, a difference in, like, who's going to teach JSN how to be great. I think JSN, you can see from his reaction, I think he is a big winner from this, just to be around this guy, have him in the building. Again, I don't know if he'll stay healthy. That's a mystery to me. This lets you, the draft come to you a lot more. Like, you would have been forced to take a receiver very high had this signing not gone down, or they signed Amari Cooper or something like that. So me and you a couple weeks ago, we're like, don't sign a receiver. And they just probably paid for the highest priced one. But like, I don't know. It's a cool story. And again, my take is just like this team needed some good like PR after. Again, it's been a really rough week for some subsects of the fan base. I think it's worth getting excited about this one.
I think that's all right, Jeff. And you had a great tweet here about imagine telling a Rams fan 2 years ago that Ernest Jones and Cooper Kupp would end up on the Seahawks. I kind of love that part of this. I got to admit.
It's crazy because I'm not like bragging to Rams fans. I don't even know any Rams fans. But like before they got like the Jared Verse and the Puka in this draft class, other than Aaron Donald and Stafford, their two best players were Cooper Kupp and Ernest Jones. And if you would have just told me while they were kind of coming down from their Super Bowl, building up, you would have told me it'd be like telling them that DK Metcalf and Witherspoon would end up on the Rams in 2 years. Like I wouldn't have been able to process that. And it's just wild that like Ernest Jones is probably pretty pumped up. He signed here. And like they've really added some good leadership and veteran experience to this building. And it's just crazy because this is not a typical Seahawk John Schneider free agency. This feels like plan B from DK and Geno getting away from them and maybe from Will Fries getting away from them. But I think it's been pretty fun the last couple of days after the first 2 days were kind of a disaster. Even me, who's calm all the time, was losing my mind. So I got to commend them for closing that deal.
Yeah, I feel really different about this, Jeff, if it was a situation where sorry, did we lose you, Jeff?
Nope, I'm here.
Okay, your screen went black.
Something went wrong.
Oh. All right, I'll keep talking.
I'm back.
Figure out. There you go. Yeah, you're back.
Something went wrong.
Okay, you're back. I'd feel different about this if like the Seahawks, this was their big move of the offseason, and it was to complete like a champion. Like I don't know. Like there's a lot of ways I could feel like this was a bad move. This year it feels like the right one. It feels like the right guy. It feels like the right time, and it feels like the right point in the locker room to inject someone like him. And like you said, Jackson Smith-Njigba is going into his third season. For him to now have this guy and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who played in Kubiak's offense last year, both these guys are going to come in and just know exactly what they're going to do. JSN right there with them. It's going to have a different feel. That receiver room is going to feel really different, and I think it's going to have a different edge to it. And I think we're going to see fewer drops. I think we're going to see more contested catches. I think we're going to see physical blocking. Cooper Kupp is a guy who is known for this. People think about him as a small dude. He's 6'2", over 200 pounds. He's a big guy. And as much as I love Tyler Lockett to death, and I think Tyler Lockett is willing to do whatever on the football field, him trying to block in this offense, I don't think is going to get your best result. So they got bigger. They got grittier. And I think one of the things I'm curious about, Jeff, is Cooper Kupp, like if you go by the position he played, of the 736 snaps he played last year, 460 of them were in the slot. 272 were outside. Jackson Smith-Njigba, of the 945 snaps he played, 733 were in the slot. 266 were outside. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I can bring him up too. He played in the slot a decent amount as well. He's not purely a slot. He's a 6'4" guy, but I think receivers are going to move around in this offense, and I think we're going to find out this notion of JSN or Cooper Kupp being a slot receiver. I think that's going to be disproven a little bit this year.
Yeah, like my first question when this rumor started coming up is like, how do these two guys play together? Do they work together? I think it's a really fun thing for Clint Kubiak. I think you can really disguise a lot of stuff. I don't think like when your personnel comes on the field or you can dictate what they're going to do. I think what's happened with Seattle the last couple of years and why they've struggled as the 11 personnel team is their players had very specific skill sets. And you knew when they brought in the 11, like there wasn't much creative. Seattle was best at their formations a couple of years ago when they went heavy tight ends and people couldn't predict what they were going to do. I think with these two, like I was joking last week, who are the bigger loser between JSN and Clint Kubiak? I think it's kind of flipped on its head a little bit. I think Kubiak, from his offense, this might be a really good thing. And you think of like the schematic fits that they have across the board here. Darnold played with Kubiak in San Francisco, and MVS was with Kubiak last year, had career kind of downfield numbers. He was in this kind of offense in Green Bay with LaFleur. And Cooper Kupp was with Jake Peetz with the Rams. And they run a variation of the Shanahan offense. It's a little different. But it's not like where you're just putting this, like you're just trying to stick someone in offense and see what happens. And the Seahawks have had that happen so many times with Jamal Adams and Jimmy Graham. It was always kind of like this chess piece that never quite fit cleanly. All the picks, even DeMarcus Lawrence played with Aiden Dirty, and there's a clear fit with what Clowney did and Van Noy did. The skill sets are just so. I think all of a sudden Clint Kubiak is probably pretty excited about what's going on with kind of how the way they pivoted. And that's before they use any of their top 100. I think Field Yates tweeted out the Seahawks have the most stock in the NFL inside the top 100. So this team could get a lot more interesting depending on what happens in the next month.
I think it's really well said. And we just saw a tweet come out from Ernest Jones 2 minutes ago with teary eye emojis. And Ernest Jones, having got to know him a little bit, I'm not going to claim he's like a best bud, but I've talked to these guys. I've kind of seen how they interact. I'm so impressed with him from like moment one. Smart, genuine, humble, and excellent. Like just a really good player, right? You add that kind of energy. The guy that literally, Ernest Jones was the guy that Aaron Donald, maybe the best defensive player of his generation, said, this team is yours now. This defense is yours now to Ernest Jones. That's the kind of guy Ernest Jones is. Worked with Bobby Wagner. They're best buds. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. So now you've taken him away from the Rams, or the Rams gave him away. You've now signed him. And now you add Cooper Kupp, who I think is at least that level on the offensive side. And I'm not saying the Rams have no leaders left or anything like that, but these are two pretty big parts of that organization that you've transplanted up. And now one of them, Ernest Jones, is 25. The other one's 31, so it's a little different. But still, I don't hate this, man. I just don't hate it.
No, for Mike McDonald, who's trying to establish a program and get a guy in the building who could be like the ultimate leader, and they don't really have that. I don't know. Darnold is a really well-liked guy in the building, but I don't know if he's like the vocal leader of the team. Like everyone's probably seen the clip of him getting lifted by those guys in the Vikings game, and they're all going nuts. Like I don't think Gino had. I don't want to say he's a bad leader. I'm not a believer of that, but I think Mike McDonald's building a pretty good kind of locker room. And yeah, I think outside of Aaron Donald, who was just the ultimate lead by example guy, you probably took the two best leaders off the Rams roster. And there's reasons they both hit. The Ernest Jones deal is still, I think if you compared to all the free agent contracts in the league, I think that would be in the top three for best value contracts.
100%.
Cooper Kupp might be one of the worst if we see if these numbers are real, but I highly doubt there are. But
yeah,
if it's actually $15 million a year, that's a little much for
what
all
do you think? What's your guess on guarantees? My guess on guarantees is 24.
Yeah, I think that's about right. 2-year, $24 million. I said 20. Someone kind of tipped me off. That seems a little low. I thought 28 would be high. 28 of 35 seems high. 24 seems really right. Yeah. 28, 24 seems right in the middle. So I think that's right. I'd say somewhere between 22 and 24.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to do a couple super chats here. We've got Jordan Barker, who became a member. Welcome, Jordan. John Hurlbutt, good buddy, says, so pumped for Rams revenge games. Let's effing go. Oh, and screw you, DK. Yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit more venom DK's way as like the Seahawks start moving on and people get attached to new players. How do you feel about this rivalry with the Rams, man? Do you feel it a little bit, or are we like creating it?
No, like it's been that way for a while, and now you took two guys off the Rams, who I have to assume that was a selling point to him, to Kupp,
100%.
And like when Richard Sherman went on that rant about like Tyler Lockett and Bobby Wagner, like everything he could say, like I don't agree with Richard Sherman's take, but if you are on his side of that thing, the Rams just did what the Seahawks did to Richard Sherman to Cooper Kupp. Like the first sign of bad injuries, they walked away from him. And he's going to have something to prove. And so it's a really fun rivalry. The Rams have a really good up-and-coming defensive line. They got Puka Nacua. They got Devontae Adams. They're probably going to be the consensus favorite in the division. But Seahawks were right there with them last year. Mm-hmm. And they're coming with an offense that was kind of a mess last year. I thought Geno did a lot to carry the team last year, but I think coming in with the Shanahan offense, if they can really bolster this group up front in the draft, they're going to have to, because that Rams D-line is going to be good for a long time. So this should be I think it's a far more interesting rivalry than San Francisco right now, because they're kind of on the decline, assuming they don't crush the draft this year.
Yeah, and I love it. I feel like I feel it. Like I usually just don't. Even when Sean McVay, they were beating Pete Carroll's teams all the time. Like I never really. I mean, I didn't like the Rams. I always obviously want to beat them. I never was a Sean McVay. I wanted him to lose, whatever. But I never felt like the little spice. The little thing that makes you just actually hate the team a little bit. I kind of hated the Rams. Started to hate the Rams last year. And some of their fans last year as well.
Yeah.
So. It's sports hate. Everyone calm down. But I like that. I like a little bit of that in my football. And here's a comment from Hayden Winks, who is the director at Underdog Fantasy. He has some interesting tweets, but he says the Seahawks are running an NFL experiment for us. Run the ball a ton, play action with 2 receivers on the field, but neither play outside or run deep. It'll be a disaster or unlock a new styled offense that breaks our brains. I think they're missing out on MVS on that.
There's also a draft.
Yeah.
I think Bob Condotta or someone was like, the Seahawks are planning to draft a receiver, I think, at a relatively high spot.
Yeah, I think mark it down. Jalen Knoll, Jaden Higgins, Trey Harris, Jack Besh. You're going to see one of those kind of guys added to this mix. But also it could be Elijah Arroyo or Mason Taylor, and the tight end position could be part of that too. So I can't wait for the draft. I know you and I are both eager to kind of get through the free agency front, and then we can really have an idea of what's going to make sense in the draft.
Well, I said this on our chat the other day, everyone's kind of freaking out about free agency. And I think a great example is to look at, I don't want to pat the Rams on the back too much here after your point about a rivalry, but we got to say this. After the year they had Bobby Wagner, they were planning on resetting. And they strategically got rid of a lot of well-known players, Leonard Floyd, and a lot of players. It was a strategic reset. They had Aaron Donald and Matt Stafford. They didn't have a first-round pick. They didn't have a lot of cap space. And they pulled that insane draft that had Kobe Turner and Puka Nacua. And they went from being a team that was supposed to finish last to a team that beat the Seahawks in week 1 and ended up making the playoffs. Then the next year, they actually do sign a bunch of free agents, and most of them flop. Jonah Jackson, Tre'Davious White. So we all worry about free agency and all this stuff. But again, unfortunately, they pull out the Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Cam Kitchens draft. And they're right there. They were probably the closest team to being the Eagles last year. So really, what elevates a team from good to great is not free agency. Free agency plugs holes, raises your floor, if anything, but it's really the draft. And the Seahawks have the most stock in the NFL inside the best part of the draft. The Niners have more, I think, projected points overall because they have 3 fourth-round picks and higher picks than the Seahawks in all the rounds, but no one has more picks in what's supposed to be the sandwich, the meat of the draft. So if the Seahawks want to get great, and you've talked about this before, they got to hit it. The day 2 is really important for them. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to pull something on day 3 that's not a depth player. For the Seahawks to elevate out of the status, I think the most important thing of the year is day 2 of the draft.
I think I'm seeing, if I'm right, Cooper Kupp has put something out. Is this right? I think, Cooper Kupp has tweeted out. He tweeted an hour ago. I wasn't sure this was coming from him. It says, coming home. And it says, Washington back across my chest. Let's go.
See, that's cool.
He wants to be here, dude.
Yeah.
He's excited to be here.
After the week they had, that's a really cool way to end the week.
Love that. I'm gonna retweet that real quick, which it needs my retweet. If I don't retweet it, it won't go anywhere.
I don't know. You're pretty famous, man.
Whatever.
I saw you all over my TV today.
Whatever. That was really funny. I did get a kick out of watching some of that stuff. A couple more super chats here. Colin Lundstrom, a good buddy here, says, "Let's freaking go." We all, I think, feel that. Jordan Barker's giving away 10 Hawk Blogger memberships. That's very nice of you, Jordan. Thank you. V Ray says, well, he doesn't say anything. He became a member. Love this, man. Welcome to the party. Kalayanamaran, I'm so sorry. KS says, "You're the best, Brian. Keep doing good work. I apologize. Don't want to butcher your name, but really appreciate the super chat." He also becomes a member. That is amazing. Thank you for joining the crew. And I promise, send me how to pronounce it and I will get it down. Peter DeLeon Guerrero says, "Brian, do you have any offensive line player that the Hawks should target for the draft? Thanks for the great content." Well, Jeff, we'll each give one name. One name. Who would be your one name on offensive line if you could target realistically in the draft?
I think my favorite guy right now is Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. I just think he's such a clean player. I love that he can kick out the tackle. And I think you could get him by kind of moving out of 18 and moving down to like the bottom half of the first round. I think he's just a plug and play clean player in this offense. They need a left guard really bad. I think he can. We saw him play left tackle for national championship team. I think you put him at left guard. That'd be pretty exciting.
I think that's probably my top choice as well. And so many people are in on Booker, Tyler Booker from Alabama, and he's a really clean read as well as a guard. But Jackson, I feel like, he's very clean as well, and he doesn't have the athletic limitations that Booker does. And I think the fact that he's able to play tackle, not in the NFL but at college, demonstrates the kind of athleticism that he's going to be able to bring to a outside zone kind of offense. So, yeah, Jackson would be my top choice as well. All right. We'll talk definitely a lot more about the draft, so don't worry about that. Dogzilla Monster says, "But can Cooper beat out Bobo?" I mean, I think this offense is going to really look good on Bobo. I just don't know how the snaps are going to be distributed. He's going to have to step it up, man.
Yeah, if they draft a receiver on day 2, it's not great for Bobo. He becomes the 5th receiver, and then he's got to play a lot of special teams. And I think he's like a good hedge for like someone on the roster. This might be like the whitest receiving group in the league, but with a new white quarterback, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But they got 2 white receivers now on their team. But yeah, I wonder how. I don't think this looks great for Jake Bobo. I think at best he's the 4th receiver. He's more of a fun story than a player at this point.
Yeah, I feel a little bit more about. I think he's got more to offer than that. But I hear you. I think that's. If Jake Bobo or Cooper Kupp's getting anything close to $15 million a year, it's gonna be a little hard to keep him off the field. I'll say this, just going back to draft stuff for a second. I can't remember if we talked about it back then, but Cooper Kupp was getting a lot of love in pre-draft evals and like his route running, and I'm thinking this guy's an Eastern Washington guy. The Seahawks needed a receiver. I'm like, why aren't they going to take this guy? And he ends up in Los Angeles and blows up. And I'm like, God dang, man. Why?
That was Sean McVay's first draft.
It's 2017, right?
My least favorite Seahawks draft of all time.
Yeah, that was a really, really painful draft. All right. Next super chat here, Jeff Jennings. Brian, who do you like at 18 in light of recent signings? Yeah, how are you feeling right now about 18, Jeff?
I think the way the offseason's gone, it's really hard not to want guard at 18 because if you wait to 50, and me and you have done mock drafts where they get cleaned up at that point, it seems a little unrealistic, but it could happen. There's so many teams that need offensive line. After this free agency where you're best getting Tevin Jenkins or what other kind of fringe level NFL player, and you risk not getting a guard, or you have to trade up to get a guard, which gives away your stock, I think it's going to be really hard. Like, for me, like the 2 of the safest picks of the draft, like I think Jahad Campbell and the safety from South Carolina, probably the cleanest picks at 18. But the opportunity cost of not taking the offensive lineman there is going to be really hard to swallow until pick 50. There's not a lot of needs that jump off the page to me. Like maybe they keep adding to the D line, but for me, I'm rooting for guard.
The home run, the absolute home run, is trading from 18 into the mid 20s, taking Gray Zabel, Donovan Jackson, one of those guys, and adding another day 2 pick, then being able to trade up and, you know, if you want someone at the top of the second round or something like that, you can move around the draft board a little bit more, but still end up with at least 5 picks in the top 100. Maybe you end up with 6. I think that's the ideal. But if you have to stick and pick, then yeah, you got to go offensive line at this point. At least that's how I'm starting to feel. All right, Karina Cabrera has become a YouTube member. Love having you, Cabrina. Thank you for joining. Brent Yoendo, love that name. Ernest Jones is kind of like a father to me. Well, I don't know what that means, but that's cool. He's a father to his own kid as well. Byron Masterson, slightly worried with cost, but such a good player. Seattle's going to be fun to watch. When does cost matter? Like if this is a terrible deal, let's say it's $45 million guaranteed. When does cost matter? Not this year.
No, it's look, if they had bypassed all the offensive linemen and made this their first signing,
yes,
I would 100%
exactly.
agree with you. But
yes,
me and Brian and some of the other sickos on Real Hawk Talk, we went through the list 2 days ago. And you can find my tweet when they signed DeMarcus Lawrence. I said there's only 2 interesting players left before they signed DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence and Cooper Kupp. And they pulled them out. So, like, sure, it's too much, but what are you doing with the money?
yeah.
You're just going to leave it there? You're going to put it on Mekhi Becton, who nobody wants? You're going to roll it over? Like, I think
it's kind of fascinating that Mekhi Becton doesn't have a bigger market.
It is. I think that the consensus on him is how is he going to be without Jeff Stellan and that crew around? I think teams are scared to give him money.
Yeah.
I thought someone, just because of the dearth of offensive linemen, would pay day one crazy money.
Yeah, I did too.
So I don't know if he's expecting, I don't know if there's just the buyer beware tag. Because like Josh Myers is the guy I was worried about. Do you see what he signed for?
Yeah.
He got like $2 million to be the Jets backup center. So I had that one right. But Aaron Banks got $19 million or something.
That's still the craziest contract. Wild. Mitchell Dooley, Cooper Kupp, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and $13 million versus DK Metcalf. It's a fair point. If you put those together, like that's what you're talking about.
Oh, and you can add a draft pick too.
And a draft pick, a 3rd round pick. I like what they're doing, and this is based off of 45 for Kupp. They've been bringing in dogs. I think that's a great one. Nice super chat. Thank you, Mitchell, for sharing. Dogzilla Monster says, Dan Veens is saying Kupp was Jody's pick per sources. Okay.
What?
Italian Knights has gifted 50 Hawk Blogger memberships. Man, Italian Knight is one of the most generous guys out there. Really, really appreciate it. I assume Italian Knight's a guy. Could be a gal, but I'm assuming it's a guy. Ban Alien Wizard. There's some amazing names in here, Jeff. Would you trade up for Tet McMillan? No. No, 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 no. No.
If you remember that guy who held like a boo sign up at one of the games that Monday Night Football became a meme?
Yeah.
That would be me right now, holding up the boo sign. Wow.
Don't do it.
No, that's a horrible idea.
That's nothing to do with Tet McMillan. It is the wrong priority. It's the wrong use of draft capital to trade up. If you take him at 18, I will not be a fan of that move.
Yeah.
But at least I could justify it. If you trade up and you give up picks, I mean that's an F minus.
Yeah.
Like 100%. All right. Water Napple says Charles Cross, Tevin Jenkins, Jared Wilson, Tate Ratledge, and Abe Lucas. Yes, no. That's a lot of rookies and a lot of new names. I say no. I say no.
Like, I would love if they got Jared Wilson and Tate Ratledge. I would be.
Yes.
It's one of the ideal dream scenarios. It's probably not going to happen. One of Haynes or Olu, maybe both, will end up in the lineup. But I'm going to sound like an idiot potentially, but I think Christian Haynes is going to start. And he might be decent to good.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think that it would be ideal for this team to have one of their players from last year step into the starting line. That's why I said for me, I don't want that many rookies starting. I think I'd like Olu and or Satawa or Christian Haynes or whoever to step forward. Jackson Knight, been a member for 11 months. We need a Kupp signing celebrity mock. We will do that tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll do it tomorrow.
Celebratory.
I'm gonna
not
jump off
celebrity.
so Brian gets I'm gonna jump off pretty soon so Brian gets more
Yeah,
of his
there's two
time.
more of these, and then I'm gonna let you go. Z Hive has become he's gifted one Hawk Blogger membership. That's very nice of you. And then K Nix, who's been all over the channel. Really love all her comments. Says, thank you, Brian. You're the best. Been working too much for us. Have been working much for us. Appreciate you. I've learned much as well. Thank you. Well, thank you, K Nix. All right, Jeff. I'm gonna let you go. Go be with your family. I will catch up with you tomorrow as we do Seahawks Saturday with Jeff Simmons. We'll keep talking about that. Before I let all you go, I will give you a little bit more information on Cooper Kupp that you may or may not have. And make sure that you give the show a like, click subscribe, all that stuff. I would appreciate it. And I got a quick super chat here from Cindy Shell. Says, Brian, I think your player interviews are the best. It's clear the guys feel at ease with you. Can't wait to hear the shit you'll stir up when you talk with Kupp. Well, I don't plan on stirring anything up, but who knows? Like I might with the Rams stuff. We'll see. Gonna kind of gauge his personality, but don't count on more viral moments. That was probably a one-time thing, but that was fun with DeMarcus yesterday. All right, so things I wanted to tell you, like Cooper Kupp. Like I said, last year, the last 3 years, he's missed a fair amount of time. 9 games he played in 2022, 12 games he played in 2023, 12 games he played in 2024. But that aside, he caught 75 passes in 2022, 59 in 2023, and 67 in 2024. He has not had over 800 yards in 3 years. Ever since his year where he had 1,947 yards, that was 2021, he has not broken 812 yards. Touchdowns, he had 16 touchdowns in 2021. He has not had more than 6 in any year since, but he has had at least 5. He's had like 6, then 5, then 6 the last 3 years. His reception yards per game, not that interesting. I'm not going to go into that. His catch percentage, this one is one of the ones I wanted to highlight. This guy throughout his career has a 71% catch rate. 71%. And some years he's been as high as 76%, almost 77. That is an outstanding efficiency as a receiver. Now, the last 2 years, that has dropped off. He went 62% catch rate in 2023, 67 in 2024. And that's on 100 targets last year. 100 targets, 67% catch rate. Now, I am not saying Cooper Kupp is better than DK Metcalf. So do not get this twisted, okay? But DK Metcalf, for all the physical gifts he's got, for all the things that he's been able to prove that he can do on the football field, his catch rate has been not so good. He has a career 60% catch rate. He often is in the mid 50s. And what that means is that the efficiency of targeting him, now, a lot of his targets are going to be deeper down the field. There's reasons why some of those targets might be less efficient inherently, and it's not about the receiver. But the notion that you've got a guy in Cooper Kupp who is a career 71% catch rate guy implies that he gets open, implies that he makes the catch, and that you're more likely to sustain drives and keep the chains moving. The other piece that I'd throw out here, Cooper Kupp is somebody who also has been a pretty good blocker. I mentioned this before. When he was, let's see, that's pass blocking. Let's get to run blocking. That's more important here. He's had years where he was an 80 or 88 graded run blocker. Like that is Pro Bowl level blocking from the receiver position. It has dipped the last couple years, but he's still like 2023, he was a 68 graded run blocker as a receiver. That's a pretty meaningful addition to that group. Um, his overall grade as a receiver last year from PFF was 71.4. Now, that's down from the 90s that he was in 2021. But if we take a look, and I'm going to right here, if we look at, all the receivers in the NFL last year, and we look at guys that got, at least a few targets, and we look at their grades, where did Cooper Kupp fit? Cooper Kupp was 38th. Cooper Kupp was 38th out of, interestingly, let me make sure I got the right grouping here. Cooper Kupp was, sorry, if I have the right amount of snaps, he was 50th out of 112. So not the best that you'd hope for. If you look at just receiving and not overall, then counts everything. Cooper Kupp was 48th, so similar. And DK Metcalf was 35. DK Metcalf was a 74 graded receiver. Cooper Kupp was a 71 graded receiver. So you have guys that will be making vastly different amounts of money and earning their paychecks in completely different ways and doing it on opposite coasts. And you have one guy that wanted like hell to get out of Washington State and off of this team, and another guy that could not wait to get back to Washington State and wants to be part of this team. I think that's ultimately what's going to kind of separate these two guys and makes this move the right move for the Seahawks. All right. As a couple more super chats came in while I was talking there. Ronan Walsh says, are there any tight ends worth taking in the first or second round? Well, yes, there are a ton, actually. Tyler Warren is kind of the ideal. If somehow you get him in the first round, that's one of the guys that I'm not sure you could ignore, because I think he's such a good fit for what they need to do here, and he's such a good fit for the identity they want to build. I'm not a Colston Loveland fan for this offense. I don't think that's the right fit. I don't think he's a good enough blocker. I think he's essentially a receiver. But then there are guys like Elijah Arroyo. There's guys like Mason Taylor. There are guys like Terrence Ferguson. No. Is that right? Ferguson. Jake Ferguson. Is that right? No, Terrence Ferguson. I was right the first time. Terrence Ferguson. Sorry. All guys that I like at receiver. Ferguson's probably a guy I'd be more comfortable in this third round than the second. All right, last super chat here. Cindy Shell says, when is the 365th show, and are you doing anything special for the show? So this morning was episode 354, if I'm remembering correctly. So you can do the math. It'll be not next week, but the week after. We'll do episode 365, 365 straight days of Seahawks content here. And yeah, I'm going to try to do something special. Still in the works. Might not end up being anything special. We'll see. But it's going to be a fun achievement one way or another. Not something I ever thought would happen. So won't jinx it, but looking forward to it. Looking forward to sharing that with all of you. And like, what's a growing community. So if you haven't already given the show a like and subscribe, please do that. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your evening. The Seahawks now have added Cooper Kupp to the mix. We still don't have guaranteed money, and we probably won't until tomorrow, but 3 years, $45 million. I'm going to guess $24 million guaranteed. I think this is going to end up being like a 2-year, $12 million a year deal. And I think this team is heading in a direction where you're going to really feel a physical, gritty identity start to form. And I think you're going to enjoy watching it. I think I'm looking forward to watching it. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. I will see you tomorrow with Jeff Simmons for Seahawks Saturday. Till then, take care.